Tommaso Trionfi. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Tocca, the event platform you're experiencing now, and the recording you're going to be seeing in a second. On September 16, we had a great event on our platform, and they originated from our willingness to integrate Tocca inside Hubspot, as we believe that there is a new need for companies to start their own virtual events directly inside their CRMs to go faster and more efficient. But during our event, we wanted to share more about why we got there, why we had this idea, and we want to have different perspective. And on our panel, we have three professional individuals that are going to give different perspective because of their roles. The first is the CMO perspective, and we have Steph Robotham, former CMO of Gainsight. She and her team pivoted the Pulse event from a 5,000 person physical event to a 23,000 person virtual event in just 45 days, as COVID became a reality in the first half of 2020. She has experience now working with lots of companies running events and has an interesting perspective of what works in the future events for marketing teams. There is an ancient B2B marketing proverb that she actually mentioned to me. Behind every successful marketing team, there is a great agency. And in this particular case, for the agency perspective, we have the Finao team, who have partnered with some of the best in the business to create brands, campaigns, events, and digital experiences. They're here today with Adam Ariola to give us an agency perspective on the power of great, creative, and awesome technology to back it up. They're experts in Hubspot and Tocca and understand the power of our combined technologies very deeply. Last but not least, we have Matt Prue from Stackmatics, who is a growth and marketing expert. He has been working with some great brands and teams to get their own growth engine started. He has a lot of time thinking about the opportunity of virtual events and all the engagement data they generate, how these can be rocket fuel to a B2B growth marketing program. He'll share some ideas and insights in this session and in the breakout afterwards in the session during the event. So now let me just welcome them and start the event. So let me welcome all our great panelists here. Great to see you around. Thank you for coming. I'm really looking forward to this session between the three of you and us. We're gonna probably discuss some great questions and start a great conversation. Just a quick thing, once the panel is over, you can use the schedule button and go to the other rooms, and each one of them, of the panelists, will be in one room and can answer any questions that we may not address here. And this is one of the great things about the Tocca platform. You can move from one room to the other very easily. So let me start with you, Steph. This is an opener for you. As a CMO responsible for pipeline, brand, messaging, what are the three things you have taken away, embraced, learned about events in a virtual space versus in person? And maybe I can add to that a second part. Are these events here to stay once we get through this chapter? And how do you see this?
Thanks, Tommaso. I think, as COVID sort of became a reality, and as you said, we had to pivot Pulse from 5,000 to eventually 23,000 people. There was a ton of learning, but the initial sort of dread was the hole in the pipeline and the branding and the demand gen and the customer engagement, that not being able to do these big events would leave. Because as you know, the audience knows, most B2B marketing teams really rely on events for so many aspects of the sort of what we're charged to do in marketing. So to fill the big hole, obviously we pivoted to those virtual events. I think I have so many learnings. I could probably make a list of 100, but three are, the first one I would say is really embrace the new environment and the technology, because actually the data you get, the tracking you get, the use of video, the engagement that you can give to your sponsors with little TV clips, and that online offline experience, whether you sort of ship stuff to people, and it ties in an online experience. Like, sounds obvious, but don't just transfer an offline in-person event to be online. Really embrace the platform and embrace the ease of moving between rooms and tracking data and all the things those platforms offer you. So, I think at the beginning it was tempting for people just to sort of move the agenda and make it online, and that isn't very engaging. So really embrace that. I think the second thing is get creative. So the best virtual event I actually attended, they had a Las Vegas mentalist magician that they sort of brought in halfway through the event. And it was a total departure from the topic of the event, but it really got people engaged, and it was very well thought through, and they planned it beautifully. And I bet the engagement after that session was off the charts, because it really re-energized people. And just getting creative and doing something sort of special like that, I think it keeps people engaged, which is the end game. I think the third thing I would say is, like, keep focused so that the content you deliver is relevant, interesting, actionable for your attendees. Because if you try and cram so much general content into one session, it's less relevant to everybody, so everybody loses. And you can always do another event. You can spin up a beautiful, like, customized venue in minutes that you couldn't ever do in physical events. So just keep it focused, and don't be too, like, all in sort of braced by the we've got to have hundreds and hundreds of people. Just keep it focused, keep it relevant, and really execute. You don't need to fill a room. And then I think I'll add one little more, because I think I looked at the folks attending, and a lot of them are in, like, scale up companies. I think again, building on that, don't get too sort of focused on the high attendance numbers. Really experiment, try new things, embrace the virtual platforms like Tocca, because you can get really creative and produce a ton of varied events. And don't get stuck in your groove. Try new things and keep your audience interested and engaged. Like, don't do the same thing over and over, I would say would be my fourth bonus little learning.
Thank you, Stephanie. That was very interesting, all the 4 points. And it's interesting to hear you talk about scale. And at the same time, because the vast majority of our customers come to us and always say the scale is key. But then again, they want to provide something very personalized, something very interactive, engaging, as you were saying. And so this seems to be a little bit contradictory. Adam, maybe this is for you. How do you think about those orthogonal objectives as partners to a marketing team? What would you advise to match those two completely different objectives?
Sure. Thank you very much. I think I could build off a bit of what Steph was saying there. A lot of our customers are very focused on making their events stand out, really cutting through a lot of the Zoom fatigue and that we've all been experiencing, right? So I think for the most part, they all, in general, they have experience running events. What they're really interested in right now is taking action on the data they gather from the event platform, tying it into their CRM, and doing it all basically in real time. So tracking participants during the event, making sure their sales and marketing teams can access that CRM data, and then moving on it quickly. As for Fineo, we have a lot of experience using HubSpot with our customers and for our own brand. And the Tocca platform paired with this new integration, it's just a really powerful tool. To get back to your question about branding and personalization, from that standpoint, a lot of attendees are familiar with traditional marketing tactics used leading up to an event. They experience, we create these brands, right? And they experience that brand all throughout the registration process as they sign up, and then in the drip campaigns leading up to the actual event. So those typically are pretty personalized experiences. And it's really important, as we've created this brand, to carry that thread of brand consistency in messaging, in design, and keep it all integrated into the event platform. And that's where, the highly customizable welcome page, the event lobby that our attendees are experiencing today, breakout sessions, all within the Tocca platform make the experience much richer, more immersive for every attendee. I think just to bring it all full circle, with this new CRM integration, we're adding much more depth and accessibility to the data. Teams will be able to act on that data immediately and ultimately drive more value coming out of events. With regards to personalization and scale, those things are really hyper dependent on the platform you choose. And I think that's where Tocca really shines.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you very much. I take your compliment. So lots of thoughts goes into scale, as we see, and I think is key. And so the number of how many registrants you have, how many of those that register actually show up, the engagement score, and a variety of other data points, and that we can capture on our platform. But what is the downstream effect of all this? How has this impacted growth goals, for instance? Because at the end, we always try to grow the company and drive the pipeline, and how a virtual event contributed to this. I heard a lot of marketing leaders at the beginning of COVID that they had to figure out a way to replace the pipeline from trade shows and events. And it was a real challenge. Many were very concerned. I think combining the virtual event successes with a growth marketing program, some team found a solution to their pipeline concerns. The number is staggering. So for about one person that goes to a physical event, you have about 5 times the number, like we saw it with Pulse and Steph in 2020, from 5,000 to 23,000. So 5 or 6 times is a big number. So Matt, maybe this is for you. Can you share some of the tactics you have deployed to leverage all the data and insights you get from an event platform to fuel your growth strategy?
Yes, definitely, Tommaso. Thanks for having me. So my background is squarely in digital, 10 years of automating sales and marketing programs. And so virtual events is something that I welcomed, as traditionally events operate a bit separately from digital. They were not quite as integrated as you'd like. And often these teams operated fairly independently. So today, these worlds are really converging, and it's creating a great business opportunity. Coming from a sales background, having cold emailed folks, I have a great understanding that every consumer is different. You're going to have different ability to engage folks on these different channels. And so it's really exciting that virtual events is now a new way that we can engage a new tranche of the audience that we're trying to reach. And it's really exciting that all of the data from these events can seamlessly go into our CRM system to be activated upon immediately. It's interesting being able to create cohorts of your most engaged or least engaged users, immediately building these into email marketing lists. A lot of these opportunities were not before possible, or they took too much time. And time is a really big problem, because anyone who spent enough time in marketing or sales knows every second that you wait to respond to a lead form or someone who's expressed interest, that opportunity is declining exponentially. And so the ability to act on this data while the event is even taking place is really exciting, because we can strike while the iron is hot. With this type of integration, it's super easy. You'll see an engagement score. You can make lists. It's just never been so easy. And I think it's something that everyone should be taking advantage of and incorporating into their digital playbook.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. I got a couple of questions from the audience, and I would like also have one myself. First, maybe I'll get back to you, Adam, on this question. What is the most unexpected silver linings of marketing teams being forced initially to virtual events?
I think, from that initial, if you're going back to that initial, push that this was, being made, it was just that need to adapt, right? It was like people had no other choice. They had to overcome any apprehension that they had about the medium or anything like, as far as being on these video calls and things like this. People have really gotten accustomed to it. I mean, and it's a thing of the norm. People understand it beyond just, they're getting over their apprehensions. They also understand the platform. I mean, I told my mom I was doing this panel today, and she actually understood what I was talking about. It was really cool. if you would have done this 2 years ago, she never would have got it. So I think that there is a lot of more, everyone's adapted to it. It's not something to be afraid of. I think Steph hit on that. It's something to really leverage and to really get the most out of.
I agree. I think in my view, I think the future has compressed. COVID has compressed the future, and we do today something that we probably would have done anyway in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And we actually realized we can do this. So it obviously it's been painful for many companies, but I was very surprised and delighted by the ability to, in a very agile way, many companies have adapted to this and embraced it. Everybody, even our parents, older people, younger people, everybody embraced this new way of doing business, and I think it's here to stay, like Steph mentioned. Matt, I think this one is for you. Maybe you can share one success and one failure because you've done a lot of campaigns to grow companies, so you must have had at least one success and one failure when you launch virtual events or growth programs associated with them.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with virtual events, the biggest trap to be aware of, is that it is easier to host the event, but we cannot take for granted the marketing that goes into it, nor the content and experience that the audience participates in. People's calendars fill up quickly, especially in this digital day and age of scheduling tools and systems. And so you need to get this time on folks' calendars. So if you're not marketing early enough, you may not really have a chance. That 1 hour block of time is very precious, or however long a block you're trying to achieve. The bigger your event, the more time you should give yourself. If it's an annual conference, it's an annual marketing schedule. But the minimum, regardless of how small this event is for your business, is probably a 2-week time frame, just on the simple basis of having a chance of scheduling availability. And so I would probably, if you can, build in a bit more leeway with that. At the same time, in marketing, it's always the case, and in sales, it's better not to do something than to do it poorly. A bad ad is spending money to make your business look bad, or having somebody who's not trained in cold calling pick up the phone and start talking about your business in a way that you don't want them to is the same concept. And so the same can be true about a virtual event. It's something we can quickly throw together and put on and make ourselves not look great in the process. And so definitely be aware that that's where your apprehension should lie, is that yes, this is easy and this is exciting in terms of data capabilities, but it does take a similar amount of effort to pull it off in the way that will meet your company's brand standards. And so that's generally the success and the failure that I've seen. Not putting enough time into it, not doing enough marketing. And then on the flip side of the coin, giving yourself plenty of time, leveraging every channel you can, and really giving it your best go is going to be great. All those learnings you'll take from your first event to your second event and more, and you only improve over time. But better to start off with a good foundation than a weak one.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I have a great question here that I personally love, and although I'm going to give it to Steph, I'm going to probably chime in myself because it's on my heart. And I invite you, Matt and Adam, to because it's a very general question, and I think is in a lot of people's mind. Are hybrid events our future? And so maybe I can frame it more yes or no, and of course, why?
Okay, so I think short term, people are going to try. I hear a lot about it. There's a lot of buzz about hybrid. I think people are going to try, honestly. And then I think they're going to realize that actually what happened is we gained a channel with the virtual events, and we will come back to in-person events, and they're two very different things, and to be applied for different audiences and different purposes. Because I really believe it's very difficult to create an awesome experience for the people who are in the room and the people who are sort of joining virtually. So by trying to create this sort of hybrid experience, neither get the experience you could have given them if you had focused on one or the other. So I think short term, people are going to try. Longer term, we're going to see that we should just embrace virtual events as a new channel. And let's be real, like for marketing, we haven't had a new channel for a while. So, probably since Google AdWords and that type of thing. So this is actually pretty exciting, and I think we should embrace it as its own channel. And then there's a ton of sort of, you have a cost for a venue and a cost for a platform. You have are the venues that you want to choose ready for this high bandwidth streaming that's going to happen? What do you record and what don't you? I think there's a lot of messy bits. So I think short term they'll try, longer term we'll embrace these two channels, and both are here to stay.
I completely agree with what you're saying, Steph. According to me, hybrid will be a reality, and is a new channel. That I agree completely, because it's very different. There are several parts that are different between a physical event and a virtual event. One of the things, in a physical event, you normally have to, there is a transportation issue. You need to go somewhere to attend. It could be in the same city, but could be farther away. And so the longer you travel, the longer the event has to be to justify your traveling time. And so you invest a lot of resources. I remember when we were doing events, we were investing a ton of personal resources as a company to make sure that everything worked. You need security, you need food, you need ticketing, you need a variety of things that make very energy concentrated there, and a lot of resources. A virtual event does take resources, but you can reach out to a lot more people. But as is different from physical, you don't have any travel time, and therefore there is less need to justify. So I think, to your point, we will make it shorter. So these events will be shorter in their way. Instead of doing a 2 days event, you may want to do a couple of hours for a few days, or in a few weeks, then just do a 2 days concentrated, because nobody really wants to watch an event for 8 hours in a day. Another factor that also goes, I think what is going to be interesting for companies is to leverage a physical event. So when you go to a physical event, it's a lot easier to record the physical event and use that content than instead of streaming it live, because streaming it live is extremely expensive and difficult to do. You need a larger crew. You need different connections and a super high internet connection. But if you record and then you use the content to do a virtual event, you can capture, I think, a lot more people. Adam and Matt, do you have anything to add to this part of the conversation?
I think no, I think it just kind of adds to the point I made earlier, which is like you're saying, some folks, it might be hard to get them to your in-person event, and other folks, it might be really easy to get them to your virtual event. And so it's going to give you the ability to tap an audience that you might not otherwise easily engage. And so I think that's spot on. And I think both of them will be used for different functions and to reach different audiences and to share different types of content.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, right? It's going to be interesting to see how those hybrid events pan out. Like Steph said, I think it's all going to come down to how useful the data is after those events. If we're able to continue to leverage good data doing hybrid, with the in-person, then it might be worth keeping it around. But if it doesn't prove to be that way, I think either way, virtual events, Steph and Tommaso, you guys are spot on. They're here to stay. It's a new channel. Get used to it, and it's powerful. And it's a powerful channel that the data, we're just starting to scratch the surface of what we're going to be able to do with the data. So that's driving everything.
I completely agree. And it's definitely a new channel. Steph really nailed that. And I think because it's new, there will be adjustment, to your point, Adam. We need to find, how to make it work even better than it is today. We're still at the beginning of first innings here. And so to Matt's point, to get the data, because you have a lot of analytical data, you don't have that data. Actually, Tocca originally started, before pivoting to virtual events, started capturing data on a company event floor. And because there was no one that was capturing that data. And that's where we started, actually. Yeah. And unfortunately, COVID, of course, put an end to that. And we pivoted then to virtual events. But data is still, for us, a cornerstone for everything we do. And I think we are beginning, and we're adjusting, we're learning every day. And that's why we wanted to share the why and not just the what. But I want to invite everybody, if you're interested, you can visit the rooms. We have a bunch of rooms open. There are 3 rooms. You can find Matt in a room for the growth. If you want to have a question about growth, please visit him. He has a lot of great ideas. Adam is more for the branding, the technology, the communication, the agency factor. And Steph and I will probably walk around. There is, if you want to go to see Adam and Matt, there's also Didier, our head of product, that is occupying a room with Stefan. Stefan is probably going to be there, our CTO, for just 10-15 minutes. He has to pick up his daughter at school, and the physical constraints. And then we can, if you want to see the networking lounge, you can just walk to the lobby and go to the networking lounge, or just stay on the schedule and go and see Matt, Adam, or Didier. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Steph. You've been great. Great to have you. And see you soon. Bye, everybody.